Hi, everybody. This is Jason Eagle, your natural health authority, with another Healing Matters podcast. And I know it's been quite a while, been a few weeks since I've been on, and I'm here to tell you why. So, first of all, we had plans, and here we are. I'm in a public library down in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and our plans were to move here. I'll get into that story a little bit later, but so something happened before we moved here. On the week that we moved here, I got COVID, and I had it really bad. Turns out, in a little bit less than 3 weeks, I lost almost 30 pounds. The way that it hit me is I had extreme fatigue. It didn't go to my lungs, and mental. My brain just turned to mush. In fact, I thought I died. Thought I was going to die. I thought I was dead. I thought I was in heaven. As we were moving the house, we moved a whole household from Michigan, basically a whole farm, filled up a truckload, and had another person come load up our animals and bring them down here to Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. It had always been in the plans, but it kind of came pretty quick. We sold our house in Michigan, the farm actually, and we found a couple that were so interested. They bought the cows and they decided to keep them, and and set up shop and basically take over our farm. And we were in the process of building a house. The house is not finished down here in Tennessee. We bought. The story goes is that for years, my wife and I been looking for property. God put it on my heart to move. And my purpose is I wanted to find a piece of property that was able to help us to get full sovereignty. And I'll explain that a little bit later. But also, my wife really wanted to move. My wife is a competitive gymnast in her 40s, and her body is very sensitive to cold. And she gets a lot of swelling in her fingers, and sometimes it's so bad that the fingers swell and split and bleed and everything like that. And so she has a lot of problems with the cold. It's kind of like back in the day when your kid had asthma. The doctor would say you just need to move to Arizona, or you were a New Yorker and you're going to have a heart attack or something like that, nervous breakdown. The doctor said you just need to move to Florida. So we needed to move to a warmer climate for her health, but also for a longer growing season, and so we could kind of do more of the farm and do it, the growing. And if you want to check us out, what we're doing, we have also another website called Healing Homestead. That's my wife's. We have the business together. She actually put a farm in her name, and so she has a farm and a woman-owned farm. Um, and we do it all together. And we decided to move down with her parents. Her parents are in their 70s, and we're building a barn dominium, and they live on the top floor, and we live on the bottom floor. Lots of big dreams, lots of great things, and it's coming along. And God, I tell you, God has really, if you don't believe in God, God believes in you. God saved my life. God got us here. So many angels, so many miracles got us down here. It wouldn't have been such a problem if we all three of us. So I and my father-in-law and my mother-in-law all had COVID, and my wife was there to take care of us and get everything organized to get everything moved. So we had a lot of help, and people that we didn't know before just came out of the woodwork, and really God miracles and angels. And later I'll tell you the stories. But so our whole thing about the farm, my thing is, God really put it on my heart to go full sovereign. You have to understand what a sovereign is. A sovereign is, again, as Americans, as people, as world people, we are fully sovereign. Sovereign, the best thing that people kind of know that word is would be like the kings and queens, meaning you have all power. Well, if you understand how life goes, God gave us life, and life and authority goes. That's why I named myself your natural health authority, not expert, but authority, because that word, I've explained it before. When you get into what's called etymology of words, words don't always mean what you think that they mean. And in particular, I explained it before, the word expert, EX, it's kind of like an ex wife or ex something. Anything that's an EX cancels out what it is. And so an expert, we think in our English language, means that's a master of something. But actually, in the real understanding of language and entomology, is it's not. If you understand like legalese, it's not what it means. Whereas authority, authority is the word author, meaning you are creative. The word gold in English is spelled GOLD, but its periodic table in terms of what element it is AU. So the prefix of AU is really talking about gold, and gold as authority, meaning who gives you the right to have the power, to have the value. It's inherent in itself. And as a God born God child, a child of God, it doesn't go state, then religion, then government, then you. It doesn't go as we see in the world. In the world, it's kind of lined up where it's the Pope, and then it's this, and then it's the magistrate. And so those are all fake systems. And those are all systems that only work when you believe it and you have ignorance and you don't really understand. Now, this country was set aside for the government and the military and the police. Their power, our taxes goes to pay for them. They work for us. And the way that it's designed in the Constitution is their power is the power that we give them to secure for us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to protect those things, to not make those things, to not give us those things. And we live in a day and age where, especially with this COVID, where money was just going out left and right. Okay, well, that's basically indebted servitude, slavery. And if you don't have your stuff together, if you don't have your wherewithal, you can say you're a sovereign, but are you really? So the whole thing in terms of the legalese of being a sovereign human being legally, but physically, those are two different things. So I'll explain what that means, which is to be a sovereign means you are unto yourself. What that means, which is to be a sovereign means you are unto yourself, your own power, and you take care of your everything. So what does a human need? A human needs shelter. Human needs water. Human needs food. Human needs income, energy, all of these things. And when you really understand, see, words mean everything. Words are swords. They're powerful. And many of those words have been turned against us. I know this is a bit confusing, but if you can follow me, this is how it goes, because this is truth. So the words of money and the words of electricity and the words of water all have the same origin and meaning. Now, when you talk about money or when you talk about electricity, you talk about current. So electrical is current, okay? But also currency. It's the same word. When you get into liquid assets or frozen assets or all of these things, these are all liquid terms. When we get into the legalism or the legality of law here in the United States and actually world law, is what laws we're using. There's what's called the law of the sea and the law of the land. Well, the law of the sea on boats, which is called maritime law, that should have a jurisdiction out there on boats. But once it comes into land, you get the law of the land. Well, what has happened, because people are wondering what's happened in this world, it was all bamboozled. This was all done to us, but we lost our power. We never really lost our power. We gave up. And what you're ignorant of, you don't have. But what you have, and you're God-given, no one can give it to you. No one can take it away from you. You have to pick up the mantle. So this false system of maritime law is what's running the show, but it's all fake. So even like our money, right? Our dollars, okay? Dollars, which you think, dollars and coins and things like that. But especially paper money. It's what's called fiat currency. It's just printed out of thin air. It has no value. It only has the value of what we call good faith, right? Now, there are two presidents that were killed because they wanted to bring it back to the way that it was originally, just the gold or silver standard, which is it's based upon something real. Now, this is society, but when we get on what's real is people. And when we get into what you would think is well, gold never goes away, because if the house burns down, your paper burns up, but the gold melts and it never, you can take it out and it's there forever. Okay. But let's go deep, deep down to, because I'm explaining this about power, about authority, and right to your own life and liberty. How did the gold get there that maybe the money would be based upon? That's the value of it. Because back in the day, you could take your paper money, like a silver note, take it to the bank and say, give me the gold or silver that is the value holder for this. And they'd have to do that. Well, they changed that. And so it's just printed out of, and it's really only worth on what they say it's worth, but it's not really worth anything. But what is worth anything is, number one, land. Number two, human power. So the real value, real value, especially even of land, because a raw piece of land, or gold, how did the gold get there? Somebody dug it out of the ground. Somebody's human energy is what then smelted it and made it into a coin or whatever. So if you really get into the bottom basics, what really is value is human energy, born of water, human energy, and human potential, because we are what makes it all happen. And that's the value that makes it all happen. So you buy a piece of property, where do the trees come from? Yes, they grow, but there's not very many apple trees. You got to plant those trees. And when you get into real true value, the old saying in America or all over the world, which is money don't grow on trees, Jason. Yes, it does. If you got an apple farm, you got a Christmas tree farm, you got pecans, you got animals that just pump out other animals, make eggs and make meat and make milk, and they just eat the grass and everything. You don't have to really feed them. They take care of themselves and they give abundance. And so, yes, money does grow on trees. Money grows from trees. Money grows from the ground. But we were designed, we were created as humans, especially from Adam and Eve, Ha-Adam, which is, if you go back to the Bible, the original manuscripts, Ha-Adam, that name means farmer. That name means animal husbandry. That means caretaker of the land. You caretaker of the land, and the land takes care of you. So we really needed more land to grow and more this. But when you get into the real value, it had to be very specific type of land. And we looked for like 4 years. We first started in Missouri, and went to Georgia, and went to North Carolina, went all over. But my criteria was, it had to have flowing water, a year-round creek, or preferably a spring that just springs out of the ground, ever flowing. And that we were able to own both sides. Because if you only own up one side, you only get up to the middle, and you really can't harvest it. You really can't do anything with it. Because now the water that we found here down in Tennessee, 144 acres, I've got it here in the bottle right here. And I just gathered it this morning and the day before and put it into, a gallon jug that we bought, drank that from the gas station and filled it up. And I'm drinking right out of the stream. It's so clean. We actually contacted the government people, and he looked at the map. He goes, oh, yeah, just up the street. And because I can see where it's coming out of the ground. He goes, yeah, that's coming right out of the ground. Doesn't go through any farms, doesn't go anything. It's just limestone, basically 100% purified, and I'd feed my kids to that. Now, if you're born in the city, I might want to filter it, because, like when you go to Mexico, you get Montezuma's revenge, but the Mexicans don't get it because their bodies are used to it. Well, we've been living on a farm, and I've been exposed to this stuff. And so here's to you. Thank you, Lord. Good, fresh, clean water. So that's life. Water. Now, we got a well and everything like that too, but we got water. That's literally life. Life for our bodies, life for our animals. Now, the other thing is, everybody needs energy. Okay. Well, we got a power pole and we're hooked up to the energy, but the ultimate goal was provide everything for yourself, so that you don't have to get it from anybody. So, providing energy off the sunlight, or wind power or other things. They're unreliable. The sun is only out when it's out. The wind is only blowing when it's blowing. But that stream, that creek, that spring, it's been going forever since creation, and it's still going right now, and it will go forever. I can hear it right now. I'm miles away in my library, but it's flowing. Okay. So what you can do, there's technologies, especially over in Europe and New Zealand. Now, we know about hydropower, these big hydroelectric dams. That's huge. There's what's called micro hydro, little small things that you can use any different form of just free flowing, or if you have a little bit of a dam, or if you have a little bit drop. There's all these different technologies. If you go back in the day, back in the 1800s, like we used to live in Rochester, and Rochester had Rochester Mills because the Paint Creek flowed there. And they had mills that were running wheels, and they were running factories off of this stuff, producing electricity, producing mechanical things. And so the idea is to have our water also produce microhydro for us so that we can produce our own electricity. Now, really get deep. I've told my friends about this, but you got to understand life has changed and money has changed. And we know money's going electronic. If you ever heard about the whole thing called cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, and I don't do Bitcoin, but there's so many others. In fact, you can make up your own. How do you make a Bitcoin? How do you make an Ethereum? How do you make a Litecoin? You use electricity to run computers because computers are what's running. How do you make a blockchain? That's what cryptocurrency is. It's blockchain. Basically, it's your computer is doing a Rubik's Cube. It's doing algorithms and it's solving a puzzle. When it finally gets the puzzle, click, now you have a block. And it's a block that you can use anything for. You can put information in, information out. So I can't really fully explain blockchain in it, but how blockchain works is computers make them. Computers run off electricity. Electricity, especially when you're running crypto miners, is very expensive. You got to pay for it. To buy the miner machine and all this other stuff, by the time you're making any money, it takes a long time. However, if you can provide your own electricity, whether it be from the sunlight or wind power or even better, microhydro, you can make your own money. Make my own energy, make my own food and water and life, make my own money for me and my family. This is the goal. We're not there yet, but we have the land, we have the water, we have the animals, we have all of this stuff, and it's building together, and it will go in stages and stages. So we found this piece of property that was perfect, is perfect. And we're building in stages, and eventually we'll get to the point of full on sovereignty. And those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, you understand me. This is important, and this is America. If you remember America, maybe you don't remember, but the stories of the 1700s and 1600s and before that, 1800s. How did you get a piece of land? You went up to it and you put up a fence and you started building and go, this is mine because I'm taking care of it. That's how you got it. And then eventually governments and society formed. And now we get to a point where you got to pay taxes on your piece of property and you have it paid off. But if you don't pay your taxes, you don't really own it. So nobody really owns anything. We still haven't fully changed the system, but it's going in stages. The government's there to protect us. The military is there to protect us. They're holding space for us, but they can't do it for us because we have to people have to pick up the mantle and take care of ourselves. And we have to get to a point where we eventually get to where we change this law and the society and get back to the way that it was originally. And it never went away. It's what's called natural law. We get into natural, other words are called common law, but really natural law because it goes from God to man, then others. Then man takes care of the land and God takes care of the rest. And if you don't believe it, just ask. Just talk to God. If you don't believe it, just talk to God and say, hey, I want to know if you're real. Help me to know if you're real. And he'll show himself through nature, through people, through everything. And God takes care of everything. And when you do your work, you don't do your work for money. You do your work unto God because that's the one that how did you get put into the womb? Wasn't your father that just put the sperm in there, that life. We know this from science because you can see with a microscope, a very, very fine microscope, when the sperm goes into the egg. You have to understand, unless a sperm is injected through artificial insemination, all these sperms go up to the egg. I know I'm getting really convoluted, but this is explaining deeply about what I believe and why I'm here and what I'm doing. Is when the sperm goes to the egg, the sperms surround the egg. Now, they have to bore their way in, but they don't really bore their way in. What the egg does is the egg is sitting there, and the egg has a shell, and it's a membrane. And when it feels the right life, it senses the right life, it dissolves that shell for that particular sperm. So when it meets up, like a boy meets girl, and there's kismet, there's the right energy, that's the sperm that's allowed to get in. And when the sperm gets in, as soon as it breaks in through that shell, they see it. There's a spark of life. There's a spark of life, almost like the angel from heaven comes down and boom, goes into that egg. And life, God puts that life into that egg. So it's God that's giving us everything, gives us life, okay, and gives us this sovereignty. But it's our responsibility to then pick that up and take care of that, and take care of the land, and take care of this country, and eventually get back to the point of where we're done with this false system. We're done with this daddy state taking care of us. And it's our own fault. We became weak. We became tempted. We became whatever you want to call it, ignorant. And we brought ourselves into slavery. But it's all fake. And you just got to work. And the work that you do what your little bit, and then God does the rest. And God does it through people. God does it through people all around us. God directs people, even people that don't know Him. God uses everybody. God is life, and life goes through everything. So moving down here was about changing my life, changing and getting back this and getting the full power and authority and sovereignty that I talk about in real life, in every real part. Our food, we make our own food. We did that up north, but now we can really do it. So it's again, what does a person live off of? Food, water, air, land, money, and energy. All of these things. If you can provide all of these things for yourself, then you can then be a wellspring, provide that for community and build community, because we're supported by community. And if you want to support, you can go to my Patreon, Jason Eagle QRA, and you can help us and help us do this, and we'll help you. When we move down here, man, everybody down. So this is Tennessee. We're in Middle Tennessee, and I swear, everybody is your neighbor, and everybody's like family. So let me get a little bit back to the COVID thing. COVID's real. And I talked about it before many times. And I'm going to tell you the things that saved my life, because really, I was on the edge. Now, most of it was mental, and I wasn't as bad off as I thought I was. Um, my supplements, I've talked many times about protocol. And the protocol that I had taken was zinc and lots of vitamin D, some aspirin to keep away the blood clots, quercetin, vitamin C, the Mediclay, which was something to soak up the endotoxins at the bentonite clay, the list, glutathione, NAC, the list goes on and on. But let me tell you also the real miracle that has been held away from so many people. And I've talked about it on my shows when I was on the radio many times, and I'll tell you, I'm living proof. I have a friend that was able to get me some hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Now, I didn't take the ivermectin, I took the hydroxychloroquine. My mother-in-law took the ivermectin, I took the hydroxychloroquine, 200 milligrams, so 200 milligrams twice a day, and I ended up doing, I think, about like 5 days worth. I'm telling you what, and they've been trying to keep it away from people. And you can block me Facebook, you can block me YouTube, whatever you can. You can cancel me, whatever, cancel culture. Can't cancel the truth. If you go back, Dr. Fauci, who's poo-pooing it right now and making money off remdesivir. That's not the answer. If you go back in 2005, he was on the record of saying that hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, hydroxy, and then there's a chloroquine, two different pills. Hydroxy, a little bit milder version. These are antiparasitics. He was on record of saying that it is a full-on cure, it is a prevention, it is a stopper of the SARS-CoV-2, which that's the COVID, right? Same family. Because if you get into, I've talked about this many times too, they're testing you for COVID-19. There's no such thing as a COVID-19 test. They've never, ever isolated the COVID-19 virus. So how can you make a test for it? The only thing that they ever isolated was the SARS-CoV-2, okay? The SARS-2, okay, that was been around for a long time. It's the same family, okay? So, and that was used very effectively. Same thing with ivermectin. It's not a horseworm pill. This is not a, yes, it's given to animals. And we have it for animals and gave it to our animals because the animals get worms and the animals get problems. But any doctor will tell you, especially pediatricians, that kids get scabies and kids get worms, kids get lice, kids get these other things, especially like scabies. That's what they give kids. That's what they give full-on adults. It's used all over the world, used for a long time, but especially been used here in America. There's just been an onslaught on the pharmaceutical, and especially the pharmacists, to not stock it, to not put it out. The doctors are told not to do it. The only thing that I think is really helpful in the hospitals would be this new monoclonal. I didn't do that. They didn't have it ready for me, and I wasn't going to do it. But the hydroxychloroquine worked, and the supplements, and God took care of me, and my wife took care of me. Thank God for her, my wife Katie, who really was there, because all I could do was lay there in bed, delusional. My brain, I literally thought I was dead, thought I was in heaven. And all this stuff, as they're packing up the house around me, I just would hear stuff, and I was in my mind, but completely out of it. I would get up every once in a while. All I could do, I could barely eat. And I'd get up and eat a little bit of this and that. And there was one time where I was basically just on the edge of starving, and something told me to get up. And I went downstairs probably about 2:30 in the morning and went down and took like 4 chicken egg yolks and like one, either it was a turkey or goose, just separated the yolks and just barely cooked and just ate them almost raw. And I got so much life out of them. So eggs are not bad for you. Eggs are complete life. I need the fat. I need the B vitamins. I need the energy. And then I would go out and get dressed every once in a while. And because it was snowing when we were packing up the truck, it was 3 inches of snow. And I'd go out there and try and help a little bit and fumble around, do a little bit. And finally my wife said, "You go back and you get in bed." And I just lay there. It reminded me of when I was a little kid, grew up on boats, in a cabin cruiser, mini boats, and or like going on trips where you're a little kid in the car and you're just being transported along. My body was just being hovered on. I told another person it was kind of like if you ever watched that movie Gladiator, when he got injured and the slavers caught him and he's being hauled along in that cage and he's just in and out of delusion. It was like that. It was very much like that. And but my parasympathetic healing system kicked in. I could feel it working. I was in and out of this kind of dream state, and I was healing. And all I could do was pray. All I could do was just be in and out of prayer. And in my mind, I was praying. I was praising uh, worship songs, praise and worship songs in my mind. Sometimes I would sing a little bit if I had the energy for it. And that's all I could do. But that was enough. And God answered me. And then wisdom gave me wisdom of what to take, and drank a lot of water. That was all I could do. I was so dry. Water is energy. You have to understand so much of chemistry and so much of true anatomy and true medicine has been hid from us about what we really are, what the body is. Hydrogen, the very first molecule, very first atom on the periodic table, it's protons and neutrons with one electron spinning around it. That's what rocket fuel is. That's what's in water and oxygen. Both of those are rocket fuel. And water itself is energy. It is life. It is superpower. Helped me to lose a lot of that weight. I lost a lot of that weight because I couldn't eat, but also it was a detox. I went through a major detox. My body was fighting this virus, whatever it was fighting it. and was using my body. It was doing what's called autophagy. I've talked about that many times, and you can put yourself through fasting, through intermittent fasting and other different types of water fasts, and go through what's called an autophagy, meaning autophagy, auto eating. You eat yourself. Vaccines are good? No. No. You want to ask my opinion? My opinion, vaccines are not good. Claudia Vargas is here watching me on Facebook. No. No, I can get in and on. They didn't fully test them. If you go into any vaccines don't get onto the market until 10 years. That's the way it's supposed to be. And these, through Operation Warp Speed, went so fast. We are the test. People are the test. And there's so much stuff in there. People go, it doesn't have the graphene oxide. Yes, it does. Doesn't have thimerosal, which is that's mercury and lead. Yes, it does. Of course it does. Doesn't have aborted fetal baby tissue. Yes, it does. So are they good? Are you a Christian? Do you identify as a Christian? If you identify as a Christian, you are not a cannibal. You are not to be a cannibal. And you can fact check this crap, and you can whatever. You can block me. This may be the last time you ever hear from me. Good. I don't care. I'm done. I'm just getting started. And this is the truth. I've been through it, and I've seen other people go through it. And be very careful taking your life into your hands when you do this stuff. And it's not, again, when you also get into so many doctors that I've seen and watched that, have basically pointed out that when you look at the efficacy, there were many vaccines that were pulled because of the level of deaths, level of injuries, and level of deaths. The level of deaths and injuries far exceed anything that should have ever been allowable, and it's still going on. If you've had the vaccines and you got injured, you need to go to VAERS, VAERS.com. That's the reporting agency for the vaccine injury. It goes to the government, but it's a private thing, and they're reporting because they're building the case. And if you really get into what's going on here, this is war crimes, okay? You are not to be forced to take anything into your body, any medical treatment, in order to keep a job, in order to walk on the street. This was all outlawed during the Nuremberg trials from World War II. And the World Court, this is World Court, said you can't do that. You can't threaten a person to say that they can't have their job, which if they don't have a job, they don't have money, they don't have food, you're essentially choking and killing that person. You cannot do this. And the mandates that they say, they don't have any power. When the trucker that brought us down here, I'm going to tell you, trucker, and he goes cross country all over. Basically, the truckers, like they say, oh, the truckers can't do this, they can't do that. The only ones that don't are the ones that believe it. Well, they told me I can't, so I don't. But then the other ones say, they can't tell me. I'm out there. I run my own business, or I work for this company. I'm out there. They're getting the money. They're getting the jobs. It's all mental. So if you go back to many of my videos before, first and foremost, this is a mind virus. This is an ocular virus. This is an entomological, this is a word virus. If you get into this new one, Omicron, it's moronic. That's the word. Rearrange the letters, it's moronic. And then you put another word, I forget what they're putting on the meaning, it's media control. That's what it is. You have to understand what's really going on here. This is a war. We have been in we're not going to get World War III. This is World War III. We've been in World War. This country has been in World War III for decades. When they got rid of all of our factories, when they took all the stuff out and moved it all over the place, and moved it all over the world, moved it over to China, we've had it. Okay? But this is America. And I'm going to tell you, in this country, especially down south, they're not having it. Okay? And I know what happened up in Michigan. I know what happened up in Oxford. They're going to try and take some stuff away from you. Don't let them do it. When you get down here, like, down in Tennessee, they're going, let them see them try. And like I was just saying to my wife, what was done to this country, medically, spiritually, physically, financially, they should have never messed with us. They should have never messed with us, because when this country comes back, and it's coming back, people don't have fear. This is a fear virus. This is a fear disease. It's a disease of fear. and inaction and ignorance. Don't be ignorant. Don't be afraid. Be strong. Okay. But it's real. Okay. And whatever state you're in, start doing some research. I heard that in Michigan, there is a doctor on Livernois who he's on Livernois Street. He's in Rochester Hills, and he's seeing patients, and he's providing hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, zithromycin, all this. He's treating. He's a real doctor, okay, MD. He's a compounding pharmacist that's in Bloomfield Hills that's filling prescriptions for uh, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, some of these other things. There's doctors all over the country who are truthful doctors and know, because this is not just woo-woo. This is, the evidence is there. The evidence against what they're doing with remdesivir and this other stuff, it's out there. The evidence of what this is doing, and again, it's even from the horse's mouth, who's saying, oh, no, he's on record, years of saying, this is it. These drugs that have been around, that are cheap, that are effective, that have been used worldwide, they're used for what this really is this is a multi-headed hydra, genetically engineered animal, hybrid technological animal thing that attacks our nervous system, that attacks our blood. So these blood clots and other things, this is a blood disease. Okay, when it gets into your body, it's attacking your blood. The spike protein is getting in. Okay, so some of the other things that I took was inflammacidin from Premier Research Lab. You take 2 of them on an empty stomach. It's what's called 3 times a day. It's what's called a proteolytic enzyme, and it eats up the spike protein. I've told people about this, arthritis and other stuff, scar tissue, other stuff. It's been really good for that. I had many people using it. Okay, so there's a lot of different conditions of excess fibrin tissue, which is made out of protein, that is tumors and things like that are inside your body, that these things, proteolytic enzymes, means they eat protein. If you take it with food, it will help you to digest your protein. If you take it on an empty stomach, it will go into your bloodstream and start scavenging and start eating the protein shell on anything. So these spike protein, it will eat those and it will start to dissolve them and destroy them. Then once these things are starting to destroy, that's where you get into cleaning things out, like the absorbing what's called the endotoxins, because this also gets in bacterial. When it gets into the lungs, that's where the zithromycin, the Z-Pak has been helpful. These just basic antibiotic type of stuff, because then it starts to, when the junk sits around, it starts to grow bacteria, grows flies, grows the maggots, and they start to grow and stuff. And then they start to poop and they start to make things really dirty. So getting things clean, that's why lots of water. If you've got breathing troubles, yes, maybe you need oxygen, stay off that ventilator, but do deep breathing. But especially this is a great technique, is if you've gotten breathing troubles, you're coughing up a bunch of junk, you take a breath in through your nose and then breathe it all out. In through your nose and all out through your mouth, as much as you can get. Looks like I got somebody said, is if someone is having heart palpitation and it feels like passing out and they have the vaccine, what can they do? Try and contact first of all, um, the emergency clinics. That's the first step. Okay. They always say, well, call 911, call, like, a walk-in clinic, and then research wherever you live.